Hello, everybody. This is BeerSmith episode number 104, and it's late May 2015. Gordon Strong, the president of the Beer Judge Certification Program, joins me this week to discuss the new BJCP Beer Style guidelines. Thank you to this week's sponsor, Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine. They're offering 6 issues a year, up from 4 at a great discount. They're offering a new discount code, which gives you 15% off everything they sell, including subscriptions and training. The new code is BeerSmith 2015. I encourage you to check out this great new magazine for homebrewers at beerandbrewing.com and use the offer code BeerSmith 2015 to get your 15% discount today. And of course, my homebrewing software, BeerSmith Mobile, for your iPhone, iPad, Android, or Kindle Fire device. BeerSmith Mobile lets you create and edit recipes on the go, and you can share recipes with your BeerSmith desktop or your friends via the cloud site. Check out BeerSmith Mobile on the iTunes, Google Play, or Amazon Kindle app stores today. And now let's jump into this week's episode. Today on the show, my friend Gordon Strong joins me. Gordon is president of the Beer Judge Certification Program and their highest rated certified beer judge. Gordon is also a 3-time Ninkasi Award winner as top homebrewer in the U.S. He has a book out, Brewing Better Beer, Master Lessons for Advanced Homebrewers, which you can pick up on Amazon. Gordon, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Brad. It's great to be back.
So you've been pretty busy lately, I guess, with a bunch of projects, right?
Oh, yeah. Between getting these style guidelines finished up, that was a multi-year project, and working on a recipe book, kind of a follow-on to the book you just mentioned. Those things were keeping me killed for a while.
Yeah, there's your Brewing Better Beer book, which has been out for, a couple years now. Is that right?
About 3 or 4 years, I think.
So that book's doing well, I understand?
Yeah, it's doing great.
And you got a new project in the works, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But today we're going to talk about the 2015 style guides. And you just released those. The last time I think you updated the style guide was like in 2008.
Yeah.
Why don't we start with what the BJCP is? What is the Beer Judge Certification Program?
Well, the BJCP is an international organization that certifies beer judges. It certifies that people are competent evaluators of homebrewed and commercial beer.
And they primarily use that skill during competitions, I guess?
Yeah, although, it's good general knowledge to have, but the primary purpose is to have judges that understand how to evaluate and select beers at competitions.
So what does it take to become a certified beer judge these days?
Yeah, well, we changed the process a few years back. It used to be you had to take a 3-hour written and tasting exam, and it was some people told us it was like harder than passing the bar exam to become a lawyer, but we've changed it so that you first take an online exam. You take a 200-question exam in an hour, and it's true, false, and multiple choice.
Mm-hmm.
And that qualifies you to then register to take a tasting exam, where you judge 6 beers like you would judge beers in a competition.
So let me see. I want to mention your website too. It's bjcp.org, and there's a shot of, well, that's actually the style guidelines, but that's the main website there, right?
Yep, it is.
So bjcp.org, and my understanding is anybody, you don't have to be just a U.S. citizen. You can be anywhere in the world. You could sign up to become a beer judge, right?
Oh yeah, we've got members in about 30 countries. It's really good. We've got a lot of members in Australia and South Africa, and our biggest growing region lately has been South America, actually. So we do the exam in Spanish and Portuguese as well as English.
Very cool. And you have many levels of beer judge as well. Can you tell us what the different levels are and how you move from one to the other?
Sure. They're ranks, and you can progress through them. You start out when you pass the test as a recognized judge, and then you can move through certified, national, master, and then various levels of grandmaster. But the highest score that you need on the test is 90, to get to the master level. The grandmaster levels are just for people with more experience and that do service towards the BJCP.
So Gordon, is the test the same for all the different levels, or do you have different tests for different levels? How does that work?
Yeah, the tasting exam you take originally, that tasting score can work for all the levels. But if you want to get to national and higher, we also require the written test to be taken. And that's more like the original exam that we had. But we have shortened it down since we're not trying to differentiate between new judges and high-ranked judges. So it is a shorter written exam than it used to be.
But it's still pretty tough. You got to know all the different styles and what they are, right?
Yeah, not only styles, but you need to know about brewing because we expect judges to be able to troubleshoot and diagnose a beer and offer suggestions, things that might have happened during the brewing process to produce things that don't belong.
And is there also a live testing component as you get higher in level, or is it an experience type thing where you have to judge a certain number of competitions?
Yeah, you have experience points that you get from going to competitions and actually judging. So those continue to accumulate, and beyond the first rank, you have to have some experience as well as the score. So it's a combination of you have to meet both criteria of a test score and a certain number of experience points.
And then you mentioned as you get to the higher level, I think you said you're a grandmaster, I can't remember now, level 9 now or something like that.
Yeah.
That's primarily experience, right?
Yeah, experience and service to the BJCP. For grandmasters, we expect those to be sort of leaders of the program, and that rewards people that volunteer for the organization, since we are an all volunteer organization.
So how many grandmasters do you have now?
Oh, geez. I think we have at least 50.
50? That's fantastic.
Yeah.
How many beer judges are there overall, roughly?
Oh, we're above 8,000 now. Yeah.
And all the sanctioned competitions use BJCP certified judges, right?
For the vast majority, yes. And that's what one of the things people get from registering their competition with us is that we invite or we supply lists of judges, and judges know that they'll get the experience points from a registered competition, but they won't get experience if they go to an unregistered competition.
And that includes, of course, the national competition, which is coming up here very shortly. We're all getting ready for the National Homebrew Conference coming up in June, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's usually every year the place where the most number of judges are and the ones with the highest rankings. In the last couple of years, there's been upwards of 200 judges judging that competition. So very excited to have that number of people together.
So you just released the new beer style guidelines for 2015, and as I mentioned, you haven't updated them in some 7 years. Why don't we start with what the purpose of the BJCP style guideline actually is?
Yeah, the primary purpose is to serve as a reference for homebrew competitions, that entrants to the competition can enter their beers in a certain style category, and then they know exactly what criteria judges will use to evaluate the beer. Mm-hmm. So it's a common language between entrants and judges.
So you, for example, define different style categories as well as different actual styles of beer, and those are the primary entry categories for people when they're doing a competition, right?
Well, the styles are the descriptions of individual beers, like American IPA is a style, but competitions can group multiple styles together into an entry category. We have them already grouped in the style guidelines in a way that kind of makes sense. But competitions are free to group those styles however they want to suit their own competition needs. Because you can imagine that competitions that get 50 entries are different than competitions to get 1,000 entries. So you'd want to group or split the beers so that judges would have a reasonable number of beers to evaluate in one flight of beers.
And you did a major reconstruction of the numbering system for the new system, right? For the new guidelines.
Yeah, that's something that kind of happens every time we have to do a major update. A lot of people have become new judges in the last few years. They probably didn't live through the last major update, which was 2004. That was the last time we changed the numbering scheme. The 2008 guidelines were actually a minor update that didn't change any numbers or add any styles. It just updated the descriptions. So a lot of people, the 2008 guidelines were all they ever knew. So this is something that we do from time to time. We might regroup them, and that causes a little bit of churn in the community that people have to relearn some things. That's one reason why we don't like to change them that often, because a lot of things depend on the guidelines.
So take us inside the judging room. What does it look like when they're actually judging beer?
Well, early in the day, it's often very quiet. Once people get a couple of beers in them, the noise level picks up a little bit. But it looks like people are taking a test. If you walked in, you'd see people with heads down, writing all the time, a beer in one hand and a pen in the other, as they plow through these beers. And judges will take a small sample, a 1 to 2 ounce sample of beer, and look at it and smell it and taste it, and then they'll write up their score sheet and assign a score. And at the end, the judges will discuss the beer. If their scores are a little bit apart, they might adjust their scores a little bit and discuss what perceptions they had. And that's the mechanic for an individual beer. And then you repeat that over a flight or group of beers that a single panel of judges evaluates in one sitting. And that determines, either who wins first, second, or third, or which beers advance to the next round where the process repeats. When you're finally done in a competition, then you have a best of show, which means the winner of each judging category gets put up on a table, and 3 to 5 judges will sit down and pick the overall winner of the competition.
So how are you evaluating the beer itself? I mean, when you sit down and taste a beer, what are you physically doing?
Well, you run it through your senses. What I usually do first is look at the appearance, because that's something that generally doesn't change. So you pick it up and you look at the color, you look at the clarity, you see what kind of head it has, whether the head's retention is good or not. And then you just make notes of that. Then you start smelling the beer, seeing what components you pick out. And every style has different characteristic elements in it. So you're looking for those characteristics that exemplify the style. While you're at it, if you happen to notice anything that's off, anything that's like a brewing problem, a fault, you make note of that. And then you just fill that out, and then you repeat the same thing for flavor and mouthfeel. And mouthfeel, you talk about the body and the carbonation, things like that. And then there's a sort of a overall impression summary section where you kind of put it all together and say, how well did the beer meet the style, and whether or not it had any technical brewing problems, or if it had any problems matching up against the style, and then some suggestions for improvement.
So the last time you revised the style guideline was back in 2008. What drove the BJCP to publish a whole new guide now and a major revision now?
Well, it had been something that we had been doing for several years. We probably would have put something out around the 2012 time frame, but I mentioned earlier, we did this major revision of our exam. So we didn't want to be changing the guidelines at the same time as we're changing the exam, because the exam depends on the guidelines. So that sort of shoved it back a little bit. But in general, when we make a major revision, it's because the beers have changed. There's new styles out there that we hadn't been describing, or new research had come out that led us to have errors in the guidelines that we wanted to correct, or in this case, the BJCP has grown worldwide, so more members are in other countries, and they're able to both help us understand the nature of the beers, like in Europe or other places, and also demand that we describe a wider section of their beer market now. So the beer guidelines are much more international than they used to be.
So, Gordon, you made major changes to the new style guideline. What are some of the major styles and categories that have changed?
Well, there are a lot of them. I think from the ones that people are talking about the most, the top one is the specialty IPA style, which is kind of a place where we put black IPA, Belgian IPA, rye IPA, all these kind of flavors of IPAs that have become sort of popular in craft beer now. So we have full descriptions for all of those.
Yeah, I think there's like 6 of them, I think, right?
Yeah, like black, brown, red, white, Belgian, rye. I think those are it. But yeah, I mean, those are beer styles that used to wind up getting entered in the specialty beer category. For a while there, half the specialty category in a competition would wind up being like black IPAs. So that was probably the biggest request we had over the years was, give us a place to enter these other kind of IPAs.
And I know IPAs are something like 40 or 50% of a lot of the craft beer market now, right?
Yeah. Whether they're IPAs or not, I mean, they're certainly called IPAs. So that's, I think a lot of people equate craft beer with IPA now.
I was sort of shocked when I think I talked to Stone Brewing, and something like 40% of the beer they make now is an IPA.
Yeah, it's amazing. You remember the commercials about bitter beer face and things like that, and now people are craving it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I interrupted you in the middle, though. You were going to mention some of the other styles that have changed. Right.
So the other category that I think is really been in high demand is what we're calling American Wild Ale. So it's a place to put these kind of experimental beers that feature Brettanomyces and some of the other lacto, PDO, those kind of things.
Some of the wild yeasts and stuff.
Yeah, something with more of a wild character. That's another very popular category of late. So we broke those into 3 actual styles. There's one for just using Brettanomyces, either as a primary fermentation strain or as a finishing yeast on top of a normal Saccharomyces fermented beer. Then there's a mixed fermentation sour beer, so where you can have multiple strains. And then there's a specialty wild ale. So if you add fruit or put it in a barrel or things like that, there's a place for that. So that removes all of those beers out of the specialty category as well, and gives brewers a chance to better describe their beers, and also explains to judges some of the things that they should expect from these beers. Because one of the things that I've seen is that if you tell a judge that here's an IPA that's a 100% Brett beer, that they expect it to be funky like an Orval. But really, a young 100% Brett beer is just going to wind up being sort of drier and fruitier. The funkiness doesn't really come on until later, and you don't necessarily see it. So part of the guidelines are helping educate judges as to what to expect in these styles that they might not have tasted extensively.
And you also have, I saw some more historical beers described this time.
Yeah, that was probably the the third most highest demanded change is either these minor styles from Europe that some people have been learning about. Like when we started revising the guidelines, Goza was something that most people just thought was a mispronunciation of goose.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's almost like it's the flavor of the week. You know, there's a lot of breweries that are coming out with Gozas, and they're experimenting with them. So it's a German beer with coriander and salt in it, but you know, it has a historical basis in that we're able to describe it. There are several beers like that, so we have a number of them, and they're fully described. So
yeah, I think Grodziski was another one I was thinking of.
Yeah. You know, sometimes people might know it as Greitzer, but yeah, that's a smoky beer from Poland that is pretty interesting. So there's also Sati from Finland that uses juniper and rye, and there's Kentucky Common, which is at least in the Midwest, you know, somewhat of a regional style and some indigenous style from the Louisville, Kentucky area.
Now, I actually got a question. Is that a sour beer or is not? The Kentucky Common.
That's where there's this. That's where there's this misconception over the years. We had somebody do some extensive research, including looking through brewing logs from breweries that were making it around the turn of the century, and they can't find any evidence that it was an intentionally soured beer. As a matter of fact, some brewery records show that it went from brew day to out the door in like less than a week, like 6
Wow.
days. So these common type beers were inexpensive beers for the working people, and you know they did a fast turn on them. So you know it'd be very hard to sour a beer. And there's been a lot of speculation about like sour mashes in Kentucky Common because it's from bourbon area. But there is absolutely no basis for that. There's nothing in any of the brewing records showing that they took the time or described a sour mash at all. It was all very traditional. So I think it just comes from an early description in one edition of one book that talked about it having, you know, a light acidity. That was likely because they found something out in the trade that was just over aged or something.
So, Gordon, one of the major changes we also see is that you guys broke out the mead and cider guideline from the beer guideline. Why was that done?
Yeah, it was based on the mead and cider styles were actually kind of done for a while ahead of the beer styles. So we think we might be able to revise those more frequently in the future. Mm-hmm. And there's been a lot of interest in the cider community about the guidelines, and there's been a lot of demand to have them out. So we're hoping that'll let us be a little bit more nimble in responding to changes in the future. We are trying to develop a new cider exam, so we do expect that there might be some more change in that area in the future. So that gives us some flexibility, but we don't really consider that a major change for us because we still consider them all part of the same family of style guidelines. So maybe it'll be a little bit easier for people to use.
But it is nice you get a lot more detail now in the mead and cider styles, right?
Yeah, there's more consistency between those and the beer. You know, we're still working on it, but we have different teams look at those because obviously there are people with different experiences. So we talk to different groups of experts. So we do expect that there will be more change in the cider ones in particular in the future.
Is there going to be a difference between a beer judge and a cider judge or a mead judge?
Well, we have a framework now. I mean, the beer judges have ranks, and the mead and cider is just sort of like an addition to a beer judge. So you get an additional pin, you get an additional you get to check an additional box on the score sheet. We haven't decided if we're going to do anything sort of more than that in the future. But right now, it's another test you take and that you can pass. We've had the Mead one for a while.
So are they actually separate tests then for Mead and cider?
Absolutely, yeah. We've done the Mead exam kind of like the beer exam used to be. So it's written and tasting together. We're in the process of rewriting it to be online and tasting, and when we do launch the cider exam, it's going to be the same way. So it's going to be the same format the beer exam has now. You'll have online questions, and then you'll just go do a tasting exam.
So they're actually are they separate judges, or they're not separate judges? I guess.
Well, they could be the same people. They all belong to the same organization.
Right.
So I mean, if you're a beer judge, you get sort of this, kind of like a merit badge. You get this additional endorsement on your rank, but if you only want to judge Mead or only want to judge cider, you could just take that, and then you would be a Mead judge or a cider judge. And we do have a number of people that are Mead-only judges because we didn't want to force people that might be Mead specialists to have to learn about beer if they have no intention of judging them. So and we do allow for that.
You mentioned the tests. When are the new guidelines going to be reflected in the actual testing?
We want to give at least a 6-month transition period because people that are signed up for tests, we don't want to have them say, well, I spent all these months studying and now you pulled the rug out from under me. So we want to give ample notice.
So you're looking at maybe November or so?
Yeah. We're thinking start of November will be when we will cut over. We still have the work to do. We have to revise the exams and including the online questions. I mean, there's 10,000 questions or something that we have to go through.
Oh, really? The pool's that big? Wow.
Yeah, it's a big pool, but we'll have a lot of help. We'll have once the guidelines are done, then we can have people go back and just take sections of the pool and validate them. So for questions that cover existing styles, we don't really expect there to be much change. Mm-hmm. So I could foresee that the first goal would be to revise existing questions to make sure that they're still consistent with the guidelines, and we might launch with that. And then we might add in other questions as we go, like questions on some of the newer styles as we decide to add them. But the exam program will publish a description of which beers are actually covered on the exam, so that people don't have to guess. We don't expect to test people on. We've never tested people on specialty type beers. So we really don't expect to have those kind of questions. We don't want it to be a trick exam. We don't want to play gotcha. We want to test people on beers they're likely to see. So if some beers are more obscure, or if you can't get them in the United States, we might not test on them at all. We haven't really decided.
Well, beyond competition, the style guidelines have actually evolved to be used by a whole bunch of other purposes by brewers around the world. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was actually the kind of surprising thing that I found was how widely the guidelines are referenced. Basically, anybody that wants to talk about beer tends to use our system. Mm-hmm. People like you that have recipe software, I mean, the guidelines are in there. And
yeah, I just published the new update actually for BeerSmith.
Love the stats and can make sure they fit.
Yep,
that's awesome.
It's pretty
That's
nice.
That's I'm sure people will be asking for that. So yeah, but if you go to like yeast suppliers, they'll have they'll map their products against the style guidelines. So if I want to brew this style, I'll look at these yeasts. Rating systems for beers will reference our guidelines. Just they're used all over the place because we don't charge people for them. Mm-hmm. They're copyright, they're ours, they're our intellectual property, but we, in the educational mission, we want them to be widely used. So people have translated them. They've put them in other formats. You can get them on mobile devices and things like that. It's just really amazing to see how widely they've used them. And probably the most surprising thing is, I've been in South America several times, and craft brewers down there were using our guidelines to decide what to brew, and using those descriptions to build up recipes for beers that they had never tasted. And that was amazing.
Yeah, I know. I was in Brazil, and they were, brewing beers that many of them did not have commercially available, and as you pointed out, many of the brewers had probably never actually tasted. Yeah, I took a picture of it because it was so funny. It was last November. I was in Brazil and this little beer festival, and somebody had a sign up that said 100% Brett IPA, and then it said 2014 BJCP style guidelines. They were categorizing it based on the draft of the style guidelines that hadn't even been published yet. So I thought that was very entertaining that people all over the world were waiting for these things to come out. Yeah, pretty amazing. Can you compare and contrast the BJCP style guideline against some of the others? I know there's, I think it's GABF has its own style guideline they use for the Great American Beer Fest. What are the different? How do they compare?
Well, they kind of serve different purposes, but I've judged GABF, so I've judged under that system. Generally, they're for commercial beers, and they're designed to be entry categories in the competition. So there is something built in about if the categories get too big, they tend to add other categories. The descriptions are quite short. They tend to be on the nature of a paragraph or two. They don't go into the extent of detail. They might not touch on all the aspects of it. They're designed to be kind of memory joggers. Okay, about this style, so here's just the essence of it. So, that's the primary difference.
I forgot to ask, when is the new style guideline going to be used for competition?
Well, that's pretty much up to individual competitions. They're published, so they could be used now, but honestly, I would expect, maybe 3 months. I would expect, you don't want to change entry systems in the middle of a competition. Well,
you got people still brewing beer probably already for a competition that's a couple months out. Right,
and another category of products that use our guidelines are competition management software. Mm-hmm. So if you go to enter your beer and you want to enter under the 2015 guidelines and the competition only knows about the 2008 guidelines, then you really don't have a place to put it.
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on their schedule. We're not mandating that people use them. We've published them and they're available. So competitions can adopt them. Really what we will mandate is when they're going to be on the exam, because exams are something the BJCP controls.
Mm-hmm. But I would expect like next year's national competition is probably going to be all the new guidelines, right?
I assume so. I'll probably have that discussion with the HA at the National Homebrew Conference this year. But last year they told me they were planning on using them for this cycle, but they were concerned that it would be too quick a cutover. So sometime around November, they told me that they weren't planning on using them this year. So that's why we took a little bit of extra time. We were going to make a big push to get them out, but that let us have an extra round of external review, which actually did improve them quite a bit.
Yep, and I wanted to mention I did just publish an add-on for BeerSmith that lets you download and use the new style guideline, and I'm in the middle of updating the mobile version as well, so folks that are using BeerSmith can get that also. Well, Gordon, I wanted to ask you a few other questions about some other projects you're working on. But is there anything else you want to add about the style guidelines?
Yeah, there are a lot more changes than, I hit on some of the major ones, but there are some other things, like we greatly expanded the number of beers from the Czech Republic that are in there. Things that we don't normally get in this country. The amber lager and the dark lager, and they actually have sort of a lower gravity Czech pale lager. We just usually see what we think of as the Pilsner. But there's a lot more to Czech beer than that. And I got a lot of help from the people, the Czechs. They were very interested in helping.
Yeah, you added another whole category, if I recall.
Yeah, I grouped them there together because the Czech beers have a certain sort of family resemblance.
Here it is right here. I'm bringing it up on the web here. It's category 3, looks like. Czech
Indeed.
pale lager, Czech amber lager, Czech premium pale lager, and there's a dark here too as well.
Yep. So,
very cool.
Not, in the past, the guidelines might have represented the beers that we would see in the United States import market. But now we're trying to describe beers that we don't necessarily see. So, another thing we did was what we call Oktoberfest is not what Germans call Oktoberfest.
I noticed you broke out the Marzen from the Oktoberfest.
Yeah. We actually call their modern. We actually sort of stopped using Oktoberfest as a name because it's kind of confusing to people. Märzen is the traditional amber one that we're familiar with, and that's what they used to serve at Oktoberfest until around 1990, when they switched over to serving a paler version. So if you're over in Germany now and you see the pictures from Oktoberfest, they're all holding these 1-liter mugs of a golden beer, and that's what they call Oktoberfest. So we separated that, and it's a really good beer. It's not quite as heavy as a Bock, but it's got more flavor than a Helles, so it kind of fits in between there. It's kind of nice. Australians had been after me for years to add in the Australian sparkling ale, and I worked with some of the people over there on that guideline. Yeah,
I'm trying to remember. I think it was category 12, maybe. Is that right?
Yeah, it's there. And there's also in that same category is also the Brits have been asking for.
There it is. I brought it up. 12B is the new Australian sparkling ale.
Yeah, and having been in Australia and tasting it, it tastes much different than the import that we get, because a lot of the beers from around the world, by the time they get to the United States, they're beat up, and that's a thing that we tried to correct as well. Like back in the talking about British bitters, I think our descriptions tended to overemphasize a caramely quality, which was mostly due to oxidation. By the time it got to U.S. import markets, if you go over and drink them in England, they wind up being sort of fruitier and fresher tasting. And some of the caramel that we get is some of the caramel and sweetness that we taste in bitters that are imported is actually a form of oxidation. So we're trying to correct some of those descriptions so that they taste like they're intended to be, not how they wind up if they've been mishandled. So that's kind of a general improvement we've made throughout. So
nice.
It's not just the major categories where there's changes, sprinkled throughout are new styles. I think there's probably maybe 30 new styles that are in there.
Yeah, I think that's right. There's the count I had, I think it went from like 90 to 128 or so. Roughly, is the number of categories that were broken out separately.
But a lot of the changes in the specialty categories, some of the higher numbered beers, in the past we might have just called those specialty beers. But in large competitions, one of the big requests we got from competition organizers is give us a system that lets us manage the complexity of specialty beers. So now at least entrants can have a more structured way to describe their beer. And that gives organizers a tool so that if they get a ton of specialty beers, that they can break them up rather than reading each description individually and deciding how they want to group them. So,
yeah, I saw how the specialty beers now have you can specify a base style. So, and then of course you have typically it's a base style with some additional flavors to it, right?
In certain categories, yeah. But there are, specialty beers in the guidelines are a whole section. Multiple categories of specialty type beers. And all of those are ones where you're going to be relying on the entrant to give you some clue as to what's in the beer. Yep, those are
the higher numbered categories. I think they're like 27 and above or something like that.
Yeah, beyond the historical beers start the specialties.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a really nice system.
So hopefully, I can't wait to see it in practice once people have learned it. I'm sure there'll be some growing pains as people get used to it, but hopefully it'll give us a system that works better in the future and lets us, maintain these easier.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, Gordon. Of course, the new guide's out. People can get it at bjcp.org. I did want to switch gears for a minute and talk about you've got a book out, but you've also got a new book coming out, and of course your old book, I'll make a plug for it, is Brewing Better Beer: Master Lessons for Advanced Homebrewers. But tell us about your new book. Yeah,
actually, I just got a copy of it yesterday. Just showed up in the mail, hot off the presses. So it's
awesome.
Modern homebrew recipes, exploring styles and contemporary techniques.
I'm going to bring it up on the web here while you're talking. This is, it looks like it's available for pre-order on Amazon right now.
And the AHA is running a special member discount sale right now, 40% off. So
is that if you buy a new membership, you can get 40% off as well, I think?
Yeah, you can join and get the discount, or if you're an existing AHA member, you can get the discount. You don't have to spend anything else. It's the AHA, because it's published by Brewers Publications, so all part of the same big organization. So they often run sales like that when books are first coming out.
So tell us what's in the book.
San Diego too. Well, it's more than 100 recipes. I don't hit every beer style. Some styles have more than one recipe. But mostly I was looking at how to apply some of the more modern techniques to these latest styles. So this is tied to the new style guideline, I assume, right? Yeah, the recipes in the book map to the 2015 styles. So I use the names of the new styles in there, and there are recipes for some of the newer beer styles there. But I wanted to give people an idea of how you can brew some of these styles using more of the modern techniques in hopping and mashing and things like that, and using current ingredients. Some of the older recipe books, are perfectly serviceable, but they use a subset of the ingredients available today, and they might not, go out there in terms of techniques. Yeah,
it's been a while since there's been a new, major recipe book really out.
Yeah, it was one of the things that people asked for coming out of the last book is. They wish there were more recipes in it. And really the first book was designed as an advanced book that, my goal was that people would be putting together their own recipes. But, I think a lot of people want a place to start. So I took a lot of these recipes. These are things, they're all things that I've brewed. They're all grain recipes. So, hopefully people give them a shot. And if you're an extract brewer, there's a whole section in there on how you convert recipes. So
do you have brewing descriptions describing the various techniques you applied as well in there?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a sort of a summary. There's not the science behind it. It's just when I say a decoction mash, what do I mean? And I lay that out. So I go through each of the techniques used in the recipes.
So I don't see I see a pre-order, but I don't see a release date yet on Amazon. Do you know when is the new book going to be available? Obviously, you just got a copy, but when is it going to be available for the general public?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure when they'll get to Amazon. Last time when the books came out, they were available from the HA first before they were available from Amazon. But
are we talking maybe next month, or what? What's the rough date?
I'm thinking end of May is what I had heard. I think the HA is going to take some orders before they ship. I think they just got their initial set of books. They may be starting to put that together.
The first run, yeah.
Yeah, maybe by the time this airs, people will be getting them. But definitely, the book will be at the conference in San Diego. I mean, I'll be there.
That's the I'm trying to remember, the 13th of June, roughly, is where the conference is. 10th to the 13th, I think.
It's less than a month away as we tape this.
Looking forward to that. I think we're all going to be there, of course, and I'll put in a quick plug for the National Homebrew Conference. I think there's still some tickets available. At least there was when we were recording this. It's going to be in San Diego this year.
Great beer town.
Yeah, it's going to be an amazing event, and that's June. I'm trying to remember the dates now. 10th, I think, 10th through 13th. I'll pull it up here in a minute.
It's a little bit earlier this year than it often is. I think it's the second week of June.
Yep. Like I said, I'll pull it up here in a minute. I'm looking forward to seeing your new book then. I'll definitely be there. And of course, I usually get a copy as well. Did you want to add anything, Gordon, here at the end?
It's just it's a great time to be involved in this hobby. It feels good to get some of these projects done. The growth in the industry is just amazing. The number of people that want to be homebrewers and beer judges is great. And I just love traveling around meeting people and hearing their stories about what they're working on. Next week I'm heading back down to South America, judging in a competition in Argentina, and then I'm going to stop in Brazil and do a collaboration brew, actually using one of the recipes out of this book scaled up to a commercial level. I'll do a double IPA down there. They're very interested in IPAs, and I don't know how he managed to do it, but he managed to score a bunch of mosaic hops.
Wow.
So,
hard to get even here.
Right, exactly. So we're going to make we're going to brew up a big batch of a mosaic double IPA from the book, and hopefully the Brazilians will enjoy that one.
Sounds wonderful. Yeah, I did just for fun. I did pull up I'll pull up the website right here. The conference in San Diego is June 11th through 13th. A lot of us are arriving, of course, on the 10th early for. I think the Brewing Network party is the day before. But June 11th.
BJCP does a number of member events at the conference, so we look forward to seeing our members come out as well.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of pre-conference events, and then I think just about every organization associated with brewing has a meeting during the conference as well. But because everybody's there.
Another new thing that I've got going on is I've just taken over as the style columnist in Brew Your Own magazine.
Oh, congratulations!
So, Jamil had done it for years. Oh, thanks. Jamil's been expanding his brewing and commercial brewery, and it seemed like a good time because I can use this column to talk about the in depth on the new styles in the 2015 guidelines. So I've got 2 columns out. I don't know if the last one's been published, but the Czech Pale Lager, the lower gravity one, was the first one, and Kentucky Common was the second one.
Is that a new? So that's a new. Are you doing every month? You're doing a column?
Yeah, every issue.
Right.
I don't think they publish monthly, but yeah, it's a regular column. So I've got more room where I can describe more about the styles, maybe about how what research we did or what we learned about it. So maybe I'd like to go into more depth into something about these new styles. So I'm using that as a platform to add some depth to the guidelines.
Nice.
And they'll include a recipe, either one of mine or one that I get from somebody that's known for brewing that style.
Yeah, I wrote a couple articles for him this year as well. Brew Your Own magazine. I'll put a quick plug up there. Congratulations to our new style guide columnist. Huh?
Yeah. It's nice that all these sort of projects I've been working on sort of play off each other. So that's it wasn't intentional. It just kind of worked out that way.
So, Gordon, congratulations on getting the new style guidelines out, and of course your new book and BYO. I'm looking forward to seeing you at the AHA conference here in San Diego in just a couple weeks.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Brad. I'm looking forward to seeing you too. It feels good to get this work done, and it's a great place to go have a good beer. So, first one's on me.
A lot of great accomplishments, and most of the beer's free there, which is kind of nice. But looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy to make that kind of offer.
Congratulations to you. Congratulations, Gordon, and thank you again for being on the show. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, my pleasure. We'll see you soon.
So again, my guest this week was Gordon Strong, the president of the Beer Judge Certification Program and three-time Ninkasi Award winner, who has now one book out and another one coming. Great having you. Thanks again, Gordon.
Thanks, Brad.
Well, thanks again to Gordon Strong for joining me. Thanks also to Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine, where you can get your 15% discount on their magazine or anything in their store if you use the offer code BeerSmith2015 when you shop at beerandbrewing.com. Again, check out this great new magazine and use the offer code BeerSmith2015 and get your subscription now at beerandbrewing.com. Finally, give the BeerSmith mobile app a try. It lets you create and edit beer recipes on the go. Check it out today on the iTunes, Google Play, or Kindle Fire Store. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a great brewing week.